what we try to follow, it's the same values, the same guidelines that we have from Zurich. And here in Africa, like I mentioned to you, today we are already in 19 countries and we are not going to stop in these 19, I can tell you. What we do is we try to develop, to produce and sell different products for construction, always based on the proximity of you guys, always based on the proximity of the designers, about the people on the job sites, always like that. So, if you have any inquiry, any question, I'm able to answer to you and my team, but please give us a chance and visit our booth, okay? It will be a pleasure to receive you all. Thank you very much.
State Surveyor and Valuer of young Samuel Ekong, fellow immediate past chair of the Nigerian Institute of Estate Surveyors and Valuers, Lagos State Chapter. Please can you join me in welcoming him, and if you can please join us at the to acknowledge the presence of Architect George Akinona, fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Architects, National President of Building Collapse and Prevention Guild. Is he present still? Can you please join us at the high table? Please, can we give him a round of applause? Okay. We have another product presentation now from Schneider. Are Schneider ready? So can we please have Monjela Ola, Head Partner Projects from Schneider. Please give him a round of applause.
This theme called regeneration. We have decided to take it from the angle of what I'll call delivering the buildings of tomorrow today. But before I deep dive into that, just to give, just by any chance, we have a couple of people here who maybe don't have enough or who don't know what Schneider Electric does. We are an energy and automation company headquartered in France, and we have a very vibrant operation here. A little bit about something which I think is going to be a little bit more interesting than maybe transformers and switches and sockets, and actually show us how the whole picture comes together. So for us, we have identified a few trends or a few issues which are happening in the building industry in general. Before I deep dive into this, I would just like to paint a picture. If we rewind back to maybe about 20 years ago in Nigeria, it was, permit me to say, a big man thing to really have a mobile phone. If you rewind back to 18 years ago in Nigeria, even 15 years ago, it was very uncommon to see people who had ATM cards being used. Today in Nigeria, we have, I believe it's about 15 million Nigerians who are using smartphones. We have over 140 million out of the estimated 180 million people who are connected. So it's very clear that communication is changing the way things happen. It's changing the way business is done. And I also believe it's changing the way buildings are built and buildings are designed in Nigeria. So four of these trends we've identified are: people are more concerned, and the market is more concerned about green buildings. People want a better source of energy, and not just our general diesel or coal, which puts a lot of emissions into the atmosphere. People also want connected homes. They want connected buildings. People want to be able to drive, and as they are driving, they want to be able to check, did I forget to switch off my air condition? Did I forget to switch off the lights in the room? People want to be able to remain and stay connected at all times, which has really become a big thing in the environment in which we live in. People are also very concerned, and this market is also very concerned about security. And last but not least, and most importantly, especially for commercial buildings, building life cycle costs. When it comes to building life cycle costs, the first 25% generally goes to what we'll call the capex, and the balance 75% is really your operational expenses, which is where people like Schneider Electric come in to help you make your buildings more efficient. Because when you invest with Schneider at the start, you discover that on the long run, you have more value for money when you use our products. So now the energy dilemma I spoke about is what we have tried to depict here. We are envisaging that by 2050, there will be twice the energy demand that is required, and with regards to CO2 emissions, we will need to reduce by half, which means that we cannot continue to function the way we've been functioning, which is why at Schneider we are bringing together a collective solution in what I would call, what we have called eco-structure. An eco-structure is basically an IoT architectural platform which combines different products, edge control, and apps and analytics to basically deliver an efficient solution in your buildings. If you we are very massive on renewable energy, which is what we call going green. So even in Nigeria today, not just globally, we have a lot of projects that we have engaged in, some on a CSR level, some we are working with international financial institutions to make a lot of investments to basically turn around the energy face of Nigeria and the energy mix of Nigeria when it comes to green energy. And even, I'm sure all the architects here would agree with me that today, if you have a building and you want to sell, especially for those who are doing reselling, not just for your own homes, if you want to sell to an end user, some certain things start becoming more important. How reliable is the power that you have? Switch or a socket. Well, it's a different thing to use a product that allows you to communicate with it. Like I said, I'm very sure, based on the trends that have happened recently in the industry when it comes to technology, that in another 15 years, if you want to build a house and sell it, these are some of the foundational issues that the end users or the customers will be checking. And if you build a house, same number of blocks, same square meter, same everything, but you have features such as this, you will start discovering, even from today, that when you have your renewable energy solution by one of the companies that Schneider has partnered with to switch off some devices, then you now start realizing that in this market that has fierce competition, these are market differentiators. What we have done really is we have focused on occupancy sensors, we have focused on lighting and room control, we have focused on comfort, most commercial buildings, and even sometimes the residential buildings. So if you can apply things like this, they said my time is up, so I need to wrap up. So if you can apply, I was getting excited, if you can apply things like this, usually it helps to drop down the cost, and like I said, the operational cost over time. So these are just some of the results that were generated. And if you have more questions for us or how you think we can support to implement on any of the projects you're working on, you can just see us at our stand downstairs and we'll guide you through the process. Thank you. State 70 is a good number.
Thank you very much. Let's give her a round of applause.
Bosch Power Tools, as well as Bosch Technology. Start with an overview of Bosch as a whole. Yeah, Bosch, as a lot of us know, it's not it's an international brand, but actually very, very present in Nigeria with several divisions as well as departments. Being a very strong, a company with a strong German heritage, we've been present for over 130 years and counting. And yes, in Nigeria also, we have established own presence and organization in several divisions. Please go ahead. As you can see, the organization is quite large, has a staff strength of over 300,000, and yeah, we have research centers in different parts of the country. Going further, we have several divisions that's already established. We are representative from the Power Tools as well as the Thermal Technology division. We also have home appliance division where you have your fridges, your air conditioners as well. And we also have other divisions that produce several car parts and even drive and control. In trying to make our products more affordable as well as accessible, it is extremely important to localize our product as well as our value offering. And we've been in the Nigerian market for quite a number of years now. We've established our presence, we have our own warehouse here, we have all our staffs locally employed, and also we try as much as we can to create a zero distance to our users by making our product accessible as well as affordable to them. I am from the Power Tools division. The Power Tools division has several other divisions. We have the power tools, we have the measuring tools, and we have the accessories. As the focus of this exhibition, we are focusing on tools that are relevant to the key audience, which are the measuring as well as surveying and architectural products. So we'll be focusing on more on the measuring, and we have our booth where we can further give you some more information. In the measuring division or sub-segments, we have several other tools, like the optical levels for line lasers, transferring of lines as well as points. We also have distance measures ranging from 15 meters down to 250 meters for both interior as well as exterior applications. We also have tools like the detection that you can use to detect either ferrous or non-ferrous objects, live wires, plastics, all through, within the world up to 150 millimeters. And with tools like this, it makes you even more intuitive and understand what you want to drill. For example, you want to reconstruct your house, or you want to do refurbishing of your house, or you want to do renovation of your house. Instead of damaging existing structures or pipe within the wall, we have tools that will give you insight into existing elements or objects within the wall. The strength in our portfolio has grown over the years. The division is actually established close to 2008-2009, and we have several tools in this range that can satisfy your need. Part of the focus of this exhibition is also to demonstrate some of our innovations. And these innovations, as you move across to our division, will give you more insight into them. One of our innovations is the Bosch Go. I would like to quickly play the video so that we have an overview. Malls or interactions when we do our user engagement. Please approach us so that we give you some more insight into it. I will read them.
Thank you, sir. Two subdivisions. If you have heated up to 65 degrees Celsius, you come back in 48 hours, you get your 65 degrees Celsius. What you were saying that you still have considerable heat for you to be able to say, I have hot water. And then, okay, for our gas water heaters, one of the unique selling points is that we are talking about energy now. Everybody's talking about energy conservation. We have come here with a solution for it. And apart from the fact that you have instant hot water, no zero waiting time, it addresses your electricity needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Robert Bosch. Okay, just a few announcements. We have the student charrette that will be starting shortly after the next product presentation. It will be on the left-hand side, the mezzanine. So if the students can go there, and also those who will be taking that, we would require architect Femima Jekodrimi Rose Othna, architect Dapo Akintunde, architect Joe Addo, architect Sam Addo, architect David Majekodrimi, architect Kule Adeyemi, and architect Jennifer MPC to please join us for the student charrette. We would also like to remind everyone that this card, if you have collected this card, please collect it at the front. If you're able to get a sign-off that you visited all of the booths, we have a lottery at the end of the day and there will be a cash prize. So please, can everybody fill this out? Also, we are available on social media. Our hashtag is 20.
Exhibition. We'll also share with you a few of the projects where we've applied or deployed some of these products. For those of you who are new here, Nigerite is a known name in Nigeria, especially in the southwest. We began operations in 1959 and we are basically a manufacturing company. We manufacture cement-based building envelope sheets. That's what we do basically. Next slide. We are members of the ETEX group. They are also global leaders in building envelope systems and accompanying accessories. We have presence in over 44 countries around the globe. In Africa, we are present in Nigeria and in South Africa. Our products can be used for a variety of building elements or building areas, ranging from internal and external ceilings, eaves, drywalls, cladding, roof coverings, roof trusses, fascia, sidings, and suspended floors. As we move on in the presentation, you will see some of these sites and projects where we've applied some of our products. Next slide. On display in the exhibition today, we have the calci building boards, which are basically a fiber cement sheet that can be used for a variety of purposes in most buildings. We also brought to the exhibition the calci craft, which is our newest product introduced. We also have the senior boards, which are basically gypsum boards, ultra-span roof trusses, brand name for our galvanized steel trusses, the crown tile, which is typically a tile, a concrete tile for roofing. We also have our corrugated sheets. If you want to see them, you can visit our stand. Next slide. The calci craft, which is one of the new additions to our product lines, is basically a ceiling board that has different patterns, almost like relief. They can also be applied for 3D walls if you so desire. Of course, many of us seated here know the calci board, and some of us here have also used them in some of our projects. I won't talk much about them next slide. We also know the different thicknesses for the calci boards, which can be used for the drywalls, the ceilings, the suspended floors, and the lights. Next slide. Then the senior boards, which are typically gypsum boards, they do the same job like the calci, but are usually limited only to interior applications. Next slide. Then the crown tile, which is a concrete tile. It's a roofing tile, and it's been in the market for over 20 years now. Then the light gauge galvanized steel trusses, brand named Ultra Span. We have a couple of them at our stand if you want to see more or know more about them. Let me take you through on some of the projects we've deployed, some of our products. Next slide. Here's a project that is a pre-engineered building that was done locally. It made use of galvanized steel and cement boards coupled with gypsum boards. Another project, a pre-engineered building, meaning that all services were pre-designed and inculcated into the system that we run at Nigerite. It's a 8-unit bungalow unit spread across a site that is very waterlogged. The engineers or the owners wanted to reduce the site. In this school, we deployed the fiber cement, cladded over with gypsum boards. Next slide. Here is another application of the cement boards we supply. In this case, it was used as a screen for the existing unsightly pipes in that building, and it was well inculcated into the architecture when it was finished. Next slide. In this case, we went a little away over the top. Instead of casting concrete, we recommended using lightweight materials for the eaves of this project. So it was a building expansion that was moving to the right. Sorry, please. I was moving to the right, and instead of casting concrete like the existing building, we did a lightweight system using galvanized steel and cement boards. Next slide. This is a similar one. This is similar to the one you saw earlier, but in this case, we also had the opportunity of having our concrete roof tiles sitting on top of the roof. Next slide. Here is something, here's a building that we all know, the new shopping mall at Ilupeju. The cladding on the facade was done using boards supplied by Nigeria. A very, very interesting group of architects, very young, gave us a project to do for them at Akowonjo. It was actually a feature for a fast food restaurant, a feature that included lightings tucked within grooves created by our own cement boards. So if you want details about this, please visit our stand. Next slide. Here's also another project we did at Calabar some years back, where we deployed our cement boards and the dry construction system for a high-rise building, using them as infill panels on an existing concrete frame building. Next slide. This is our office in Upper Akran. This is the facade facing the Upper Akran Avenue. You can see how the facade was before. It was built in the 60s, but that's what we did to that facade using cement boards. Interesting, not so? Okay, next slide, please. Here is what one of our contractors did for a customer of his in GRA Keja, where the customer wanted to create some interesting facade elements on his building. This is sidings application using cement boards, supplied of course by Nigeria. Next slide. This is a religious building in Alagomeji in Yaba. You can see the interesting design of the ceiling. A few of us might have attended service in that church before. That church ceiling you see is actually done by a contractor which use materials purchased from Nigeria. This is actually gypsum board supplied by Nigeria. Next slide. We have a host of projects we could show you, but let's keep it to this. We also train people on how to use our materials. If you're interested in any of these trainings, please feel free to get in touch with us. We also offer technical support to that effect. Next slide. So if you want more information, or you have questions, or you have a project need, and you think you might be able to use us, please visit our stand and we'll talk more. If you want to contact us, there is our contact address. Thank you very much for listening to me. I wish all of you the best of luck.
Thank you very much, Nigerite. Okay, so the last product presentation for the morning session is going to be given by Asahi Glass Company, and I would like the reps to please come forward. We have Neka Azuka Onbuka and Valerie Barlett.
I will introduce you this topic. We were quite inspired by the reality of your choice on your building or on a simulated building. Okay, but before that I will introduce AGC in a few words, because this is, then I was going to explain you the tools. Go next. So who is AGC? In brief, we are a very big company, present all over the world. We are quoted at the stock exchange of Tokyo. So we are a Japanese company, but the headquarters of the glass is in Belgium, because Belgium has an historical capability in glass manufacturing. Okay, this is where we are based. So in the group you have four main business segment: glass, electronics, chemicals and ceramics. The major part of our business is glass. Okay? We are present in 3 different regions, and we are now developing Africa. So we start presence in Africa. We started by Morocco for the moment, but we are really envisioning some presence in sub-Saharan Africa as well. So just to give you an idea, we have float plant manufacturing, but also R&D. R&D, for example, in Europe, it's 300 researchers working only on glass development. So I invite you to the booth after, because glass looks like glass. Yes, it's transparent glass. What can it bring? Well, when you have 300 researchers working on glass, it means that there is something we can bring. And on the booth, you can even feel. We have a demonstrator where you can feel the difference between a clear glass and a solar control glass, where 70% of the heat remains outside of the building. And you can feel it. Just, I invite you to come and feel it. Okay. So, we do very different kind of glass. Thermal insulation, solar control. What we know is important in Nigeria, 2 things. The most important things, not too much light, because you have the glare issue. Otherwise, you will shut down the curtain and you will turn on the artificial lighting, which will consume electricity, which is not good for the planet, for your money. Your pocket is not good neither. Okay? So light transmission, not too much light, and heat control. You want to prevent the heat to get into the building. Okay? So we have a whole range of glass. Also in terms of security, safety, acoustic properties is also very important. So we are recognized for R&D innovation strategy, but also we manufacture the glass, we control the whole process of manufacturing the glass from the sand to the double glazing. Okay? So we know every step and we try to improve every day the technology, the competitiveness of the product. And we are working on new geographies. Yes. So please go ahead, yes. So just to give you some ideas of projects that we have done in the world. So for example, we have done the NATO building. You can imagine the anti-explosion specification that we get for that project. And I told him, you know, it's for free, so you can, for free. Yes, she can help for free. I mean, she's really there to support the architects in the choice of their products. And we don't do that in Nigeria only. We do that all over the world because architects know a lot of things about very different topics, but they're not specialists of every product. So they need to have this advice. They need to have this continuous information about the evolution of the products. So we have a very large product range. We are very much kind on innovation. We like to integrate electricity, solar cell into glass. You can come to the booth, you will also see BIPV, so photovoltaic integrated solar cell into glass. We have high standard qualities. We give 10 years warranty on the double glazing, for example, in Europe. We can adapt the price depending on the countries. We are developing the market in Brazil. It's another kind of requirement than in Europe. But we are very adaptable to all these different needs. And finally, highly reliable. If you order a product now, in 10 years you will get the same products from AGC, same color. You can replace the glass with the same color, same properties. Okay? So now I will give the floor to Nena, because she will explain.
Valerie has told you who we are, so I won't go over that again. And we have quite a number of tools that we can use to support the architects. But we've chosen these three because we feel that they are like your everyday tools in the job that you do. Next slide, please. So we have the glass configurator. And I'm going to be talking you through what this glass does. I would also have done an online real-time simulation, but we know what internet can be. So I'll just basically talk you through what we can do. And if you are interested in knowing more, just come to our booth. We'll take your details and then we'll talk after the exhibition. Alright, for the glass configurator, that's what the homepage looks like when you get to it. And I'll tell you how at the end of the presentation. Basically, it helps to calculate the performance of any glass. So if you pick an ordinary raw glass and you want to know what properties this glass can give, 17%, I need a light transmission of 55%. Oh no, the U value has to be 1.0. So this product, this tool will help you calculate all of this. And it's available for everyone to use. Of course, initially, and just on the surface, it's going to be with limited access. But as we talk and you ask to us, we'll be able to grant you a corporate access to it. And this is suitable for facade makers, architects, anyone within the industry that wants to know more about glass. So next please. So I'll just run you through. Basically, you just need to visit yourglass.com, www.yourglass.com, and once you get to that page, it brings you to our homepage for everything glass. You will see all of the tools. Just click on glass configurator, and then it brings you to a page like this. So up here you have the single glass, the double glazing, the triple glazing. You take your pick, and then you come down here. So if you choose the single glass, it would give you a window for the single glass, and you enter everything that you want. You pick your product group, the product type, and the thickness. and all you need to do is just press calculate and it takes you there. If it is a laminated glass, you see that the outlook becomes different, because then you need 2 pieces of glass. For double glazing, it's also the same thing. And then it presents you with this. All you need to do is fill in all of the details that you want, and I'll tell you how to get those details as well. Fill in all of these details that you want, and you click calculate. So for instance, for the product group, I'll take one of our products, Topsol. So you click Topsol, and then it takes you to the next one, and you pick the type of Topsol, maybe classic bronze, clear, whatever it is, and you select your thickness. Voila, it's done. It will give you something like this, which you can download and print. So it gives you the light properties, which include the light transmission, reflection, internal light reflection, and of course, the color rendering as well. It also gives you property like the energy properties, which looks at the solar factor, the energy reflection. It also looks at the thermal properties, which is the U value that we all talk about. More so, yeah, we look at other properties like acoustics, thickness, and so on and so forth. I'm trying to be fast. If, for example, you're sending it to your customer and you want to add a little note to it, we also have made provision for that. Okay, so it's nice to see the properties of the glass, but wouldn't it be even nicer to see what this glass would look like on your building? That will take us to the architectural glass visualizer. So what does this do? What does this do? It helps you to see what your facade would be like at the end of the day. So it gives you the appearance of what the final product would be, and it's very close to reality. And it works with various climates. You choose your scene, select your product, and then the visuals would show. To select your product, all you need to do is just to click. After selecting your scene, you click products. And then it brings you, this is the scene that I've selected. And this is an interior scene. So I'm looking at how it looks from the inside. You can look at it from what it would look from the outside. For instance, this is an exterior look. This is the multi-scene view. And this is where you come to pick up your products. All you need to do is pick and you drop. Pick and you drop. You can pick up to 8. Once you've selected that, you just click on visuals. I selected the classic bronze, and that's what it's given to me. In this case, I selected 2 products, and you'll be seeing how I navigate through. I picked the classic bronze, and this is when you pick on mosaic, it brings out the visual much better. I picked on the classic bronze and the classic green. So on the screen, you can actually split it to see what it looks like. You can move it to one end. So you see I stopped here. This is still the bronze. And you can move it to the other end, just as you can have them both divided. So the tool is quite easy to use, and it's very interesting. This is the nighttime view. So it tells you what the building would look like when all the lights, natural lights, are gone. And you can look at the tool in full. So it has all of these features. And at the end of the day, you can actually see the product information for the glass that you have selected just by clicking on it, on the I button. And on the last leg, now we have seen how to choose our products and know the properties. We've seen what it would look like. Now, this is the easiest of all of the tools, and it's the one for our interior products. It's called the decorative glass visualizer. I can just talk through this on one glass. You'd see we have 2 scenes. It has the night and the day mode, and then it has these 2 buttons. So what it does is when you click on this button, it gives you, when you click on this button, it brings out all of the colors that are available. So once you click on this, on the color you want, it changes the side of the wall. So you can see what the appearance of that color would look like at the end of the day. So, having talked you through all of these tools, how do you begin to use it? Just visit www.yourglass.com. You would see and click on products. When you click on products, you would see our categorization of products. So solar control, our website is still very easy to navigate. If it's solar control you're looking at, you just click it, you see all the products under solar control. So once you've been able to pull out the products you want, you move on to the glass configurator to do the simulation of the product you want. You already know the thickness that you want. That would help you do it. We also have a tool called the product finder, which you can use, quite easy to navigate. So if you just tell it what you're looking for, it would make product recommendations for you.
Like an urban design presentation from Canada, and I'm glad that they be able to talk to us a little bit about is how governance, I mean the people who are governing the state, how they relate to the people as the architects who are planning the space. Because I figure that it's one of those things that we are still learning to do here. For example, I like what he said about the fact that when they had this problem with East Village, when East Village needed to be developed, obviously when you want to develop any area, you need financing for it. So in order to have funds to develop this East Village, they temporarily came up with an idea that for the next 30 years, all the property taxes collected in that town would be devoted to the redevelopment of East Village. I wonder whether that's one of the ideas we can probably borrow from Canada for doing what we want to do here. So very quickly, I'm going to ask Bill to just elaborate a little bit on the political angle of that urban development exercise. Thank you.
Charge basically is the mayor of Calgary, who realized that something needed to happen in this part of town. So they had to figure out how to find some money, but it meant changing the act, the Municipal Government Act in Alberta. So the mayor had to go on his hands and knees to the premier of the province of Alberta to change the Government Act so that property taxes could be actually taken into one small part of the village rather than the entire city. The Property Tax Act in Alberta says municipalities must collect money, put it into a big pot, and then share it across the entire city. The mayor did convince the premier that this would be a good idea by limiting the boundaries of where this taxes would be collected. And they changed the Municipal Government Act within about a year of the request. And then the mayor said, now we need to set up a committee. They realized the committee needed to be separated from the day-to-day governance of the city. So they set up a private corporation and gave it the mandate to make this work. We will give you the money, you take control of the whole thing. We don't want to be involved. There was a bit of an outcry by the citizens of the city who said, no, these people can't be treated specially. But the mayor withstood his ground and said, we have no other way of making this happen. And so they created this CLR, this Community Revitalization Levy, for this particular part of the city. And soon the rest of the city forgot about it, and East Village has taken on a beautiful life of its own.
Governance or should I say politics with the realities of urban development. And you know, urban development goes on and on and on in infinity, if you like, whereas governance goes on every 4 years, every 4 years, every 4 years, every 4 years. So maybe you can just give us a few of your comments.
System of implementing projects. Basically, at the commencement of every project, to have one mechanism that has been put in place to have a mechanism that has been put in place to check how this project comes up from the inception up to its completion stage. Basically, mentioned, we have a project that is actually allocated for that project. And at the commencement of the project, that is what we have, that is what we call the project monitoring unit. The project monitoring unit of the ministry will have to go in to the site to inspect the project, how it has taken off, and what has been done, if those things have been done in accordance with the specifications in the bill. And basically, when you talk about the financial aspect of that project, we have a ministry that is basically charged with the responsibility of ensuring that the money allocated for a particular project is judicially spent. And that is the Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget. The system operates in such a way that when the project gets to a certain level and the contractor probably demands for maybe interim payment, the project monitoring from the ministry would, as a first step, go in and inspect the state of work, and a report will be done, which will be forwarded to the Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget. The Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget actually ensures that the project does not go beyond the budgetary allocation allotted for that project. So in a way, politically, government itself has its own political way to ensure that projects are implemented to the benefit of the populace.
Thank you.
I just want to add something. Politicians who followed the mayor, the other mayors that followed the mayor, of course, are embracing the project because it's a success. Had there been a failure, there would have been some kind of political outfall. But each mayor now claims that they are part of the success story. So it works for the politicians, you see, because it's a successful project.
Thank you, Bill. I remember that when we were going around, I was asking you also about the other problem with urban development is that usually urban development projects take several years to complete. That is usually more years than the life of the mayor or the governor or what have you. Is there any, and I think so far it's looking as if we're not doing too well on that here. We tend to have, every time the government changes, the development plan also changes. I don't know whether it's fair for me to say, maybe architect Adebo would like to just say a little thing about what arrangements you have on ground to ensure that project continuity is established, even when government has changed.
Basically, at the commencement of the fiscal year, we normally do the budgetary, what we call budgetary allocation of projects. Each project is taken on its own merits, and the budgetary provision for that project will be taken into consideration and then presented to the Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget for appraisal. And what normally happens is that at the end of it all, the project has been marked to probably take about, let's say, maybe 10 million.
Want to ask either the Governor of Lagos State or Bill any questions on this topic we are on right now? Anybody from the floor? Okay, well, okay. Can you please tell us who you are very quickly and make your questions very short, please.
Adeniji Akinos is the name. I'm an architect. I have 2 questions. One to the gentleman from Canada and one gentleman representing the government. I caught on late on your explanation of the way and manner you handle the issue of tax being taken away from another place and to regenerate another. I would like you to explain that because I came in on board late when you were speaking, and I'd like to know the trick, how you handle that. You were saying something about tax being frozen or taken out of place while others were taxed. So I'd like you to repeat that just for me to understand that. For the representative of the governor, this is not specifically to you. I just want to understand how it works actually at this level, where a consultant is given a job at the government with some translator, and the job, of course, is not finished until the next application comes in. But the ability of such consultants to get paid the outstanding becomes impossible under the administration. The government is supposed to be continuity. Is that why it has so? My question may be a bit direct, but it's a live case scenario, and I do not want to make it public. But I wish I have answers because I'm worried. If the new project is handled, it's been commissioned, the consultant is not paid, the contractors are paid. Thank you.
I'll agree for both of them actually. In the case of Bill, the way he has explained the tax situation is that, sometimes in an environment, I don't know, for example, we have, at least the Nigerian system, we have the executive, the presidency, we have the state government, then we have local governments, okay? I think this particular case is almost like you have, let's say in Lagos State, for example, you have a particular local government that has a special need to tackle a particular urban regeneration project. Now, that local government makes an application to the state government. Just what happened. I mean, in their own case, the local city, whatever, made an application to the state to say, look, we have this peculiar problem in our local government, and we want to request a round of applause. I mean, as chairman of this session, I don't really have any questions to ask you because I know that, the presentation was so nice that we can get a lot of the additional information from their stands. But I have to say that some of the presentations really require some, more clarification. And I would say that in particular, Plascon, is Plascon here?
Yes, we are.
Okay. I wasn't too sure. Why are you talking about finishes? That is paint or what? I know you talked a lot about colors, but I wasn't really too sure what you were talking about. So maybe very quickly you can tell us, what are you selling?
Oh, I see. Okay, when we sell paint, we sell not just paint, we sell
Hold on 1 second. Somebody else wants to add to the question I'm asking. Okay. My chairman wants to assist you in clarifying the question I've just asked. Okay.
You can sit down. Okay, what we're trying to do is we want our partners, exhibitors, to go beyond telling us we sell paints. We want them to be more educated. We actually want most of our presenters to toe the line of Plascon, to actually educate us rather than telling us, let's now ask them what they do. Because if you weren't here when they started, we don't know what they do, you will actually understand what they're talking about. They've taken time to look at the kind of colors we use, the kind of colors we'll be using before and all that. So it was quite educative. That is actually the trend we want to take in the future. So now we can ask them, do you sell paint and how much is your paint? So
not really how much, but I just wanted a little technical information about the products you are actually marketing and how they will. You know, for example, we have serious problems with paint in this environment because we have a lot of sunshine, ultraviolet light, solar, attack on the paint. So the paint, a lot of paint don't last as long as we wish they will last. And then, of course, you need some very special specifications even then to make the paint do its job. So,
in essence, is to ensure that that salt doesn't migrate through to affect the integrity of your coating. Because when you see that paint is spilling off the wall, the first thing people say, oh, this paint has spilled. But sometimes it goes deeper than the actual paint. It actually goes to your surface. So at Kansai Plascon, we sell you a complete solution. So when you come to our stand, for example, beyond selling you paint, we also do a free color consultation. So I pretty much started with on a very colorful note, talking to you about the different trends we've seen in the last 5 years. So when you come to the stand, we also like to ensure that people, you get value for what you're paying for. So instead of saying, okay, I like a blue house, what we do is we give you 3 color options. This is what a blue house would look like. This is what maybe like a lighter blue would look like. This is what a purple would look like. So based on you, when you see that visual, you can now say, okay, I don't think the blue works for me. I think I should go with this light pink, on and on. So instead, we're a one-stop shop, for your color solutions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. I now go to Sika. I put down the notes here. I said, what are the building products you market?
Thank you very much. I try to give you a broad idea about what is the company, because one of the issues sometimes it's difficult to explain what are the products that we are selling. To be honest, most of the time what we try to speak and what we try to show is how we can help you in your daily work, how we can help you in your issues. Especially now the architects, and I'm sure most of you are here and you know the new technologies about BIM and so on. So we are working, and like our colleague here said, most of the time we are focusing educating people. We are focusing training. For example, like I mentioned to you, we are divided in 7 target markets. The first one is concrete, and to be honest, most of our time, instead of giving here a lecture or describing what is the products that we sell, basically we sell admixtures, we sell additives, we sell waterproofing products to do concrete. We teach you how to do concrete. That's what our guys are doing. That's what I do, I go to the job site or I sit with you guys and I try to teach you, because that's my know-how and my team. We try to sit with you and to try to teach you how to do concrete. Because that's what we learn, that's how we do it, that's why we have our labs. It's to teach people how to do concrete, because it's the only way we are sure that you can apply properly our products. For example, one of the main products, and that's what we are producing here, it's the admixtures, all the products. So that's our main focus. But to know about the products, please visit us on the booth. It will be more easy.
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to bring the session to an end. But before I do that, are there any questions from the floor? I'll just take 2.
By choosing the architect to help the city then the plan. Is it an open discussion, or you put it on the website, or basically?
All right, so the architect, that's a great question. The architect in London, it was a result of an international design competition. And it was CMLC that ran it. And remember, I said earlier, the mayor said, you deal with it. As long as it's a success, we won't bother you politically. So CMLC ran an international design competition. They had many, many entries. They selected Broadway Mayor. They did the master plan. And then many competitions were held for architects for various buildings, such as the National Music Center, the Public Library, the large parkade. The developers, however, who are building the buildings on the pieces of land that the city has sold to them, can hire their own architects. And because the developers are typically from Vancouver or Toronto. They've been using those architects from those cities. So we're getting an array of architects working in our city these days, which is lovely.
Also, the mayor, when there's so many competition, is the mayor part of all that setting the plan, or he just give you the money to say, trust me?
Well, that was part of the mandate of CMLC is successful at it, so the politicians are all staying away saying, what's good for you is good for me.
We have South Africa, we have gone to do this. I think we will be very much, since our governor is here, yeah, this is for them. And it's part of us. It happens, we got this from South Africa. We saw people build this, it's like, come and build it at home. I've always said it, we went to the same schools. The Nigerian architect is very, very qualified and intellectually equipped. Let me put it, maybe just like we are saying, some materials we don't have here. Like over there, you have a ceiling, somebody's already designing it there. The ceiling that will come onto the building. Here, we go to the market and pick a material to turn it into that. And that's just the edge, technology. That's the edge they have over us. So, but if you put it to competition, you will get the best. You'll be able to choose. This meets our demands best. But when we come, this person in South Africa, he will do it. Then you pick. I went today. I went to India. I went to Jaipur. The airport I saw there is very, very... Jaipur is not the capital of India. When we come to Nigeria, all the airports are looking alike. It's an insult to architects. Are you getting me? If it was a very fantastic design, we would say, okay, very good. But this one comes here, the next architect does another airport, and we will be able to have the best. So this is what we are talking to those who are the executors of our policy. So please give the architects a chance, the best will come out. Just like we see, it was done by competition in Canada, and they got the best. If we do that, we will be getting the best. Even when I see that the program was chosen is far better than what I presented, I'll be very happy I'll be very proud that another architect did it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. That's the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman of Session, Architect Kitoye Ibari-Akinson. We are very grateful, sir. To interest you that is the past chairman of the chapter and also the past president of ACAN, that's Association of Consulting Architects of Nigeria. Please let's give him a round of applause. Have a lovely time, a nice round table. Before we go, we'd like to have the group photograph of this esteemed high table, and while we are getting ready for our photograph, I'd like to anchored by Rosemary Otner, and HSE for architects, that will be anchored by Joe Ado from Ghana, and finance for architects will be anchored by Roman Osagele. For packaging design business, we're using the far end of the hall on my right. Can we have the national...
The guarantee is also here comes straight on extends 6 meter bars, no problem, or even
So Architect Joado, please come up and sit with the chairman of session. I will also invite Roman Osagele to join up and be with the chairman of session. Also, I will invite Architect Jennifer Mpisi from Uganda. Welcome. She just got in this afternoon and she's here with us. So like I said, this is going to be a very practical, hands-on session. I'll call on Architect Joado to come and give us a comment.
Good afternoon. Warm greetings from Accra, Ghana. Today's theme is supposed to be health, safety, and the environment for architects and for architecture. I would like to focus on something which is not written, but it encompasses all of this, which is culture. What is the role of culture in creating and developing a certain African response in architecture? Unfortunately, my presentation isn't ready yet, but I will talk a bit about what I do via the lens of culture and heritage, underpinned by preservation and conservation. I work and practice as an architect in Accra. This is a layered city of the pre-colonial, colonial, and of course the contemporary mapping of your classic African city. So I lived abroad for many years and came back 40 years ago and wanted to what a contemporary African architect could be like or is. Before I even moved in, I was visiting Ghana quite a lot. I realized that I couldn't practice architecture, or I shouldn't practice architecture as I did in Los Angeles. Because in Los Angeles, when I worked for a firm or when I started my own practice, people call you, Joe, I have $500,000. I want A, B, C, and D. You sign the deal and things just happen. You move to Ghana, Joe, I have no money, but I want a 10-bedroom house. And I don't think that kind of environment often does not, it forces you to be very creative on one hand, but it can also be very frustrating. And I think, I hate to speak for the profession broadly, but most of us are walking frustrated, stressed people. Because we think, or we are taught in school to behave like a European Bauhaus architect, who's the master of everything and money comes to you. I found out the hard way that we need to become instigators and promoters of projects. And you have to become a cultural entrepreneur in the process. Of course, we all have to make money, don't get me wrong, but what we do must generate wealth for yourself and of course the people around you, and by extension, hopefully there will be a trickle-down effect to the community in which you work. So, before I moved back to Ghana, I just thought I needed to do something that spoke of my aspirations as an African architect. I was practicing in Los Angeles. We went to school in Europe. I went to school, by the way, with this beautiful young woman here. And I decided in 2003 to design my own house before I returned to Ghana, which would capture for me what I stood for. It's very important. In African architects always complain about the client. Oh, the client didn't do this, not enough money, they didn't have the vision. But I remind all of us that we often become our own client in your own home. So that's where you test your ideas. There's no excuse here. You have the money. You have, you're trying to express who you are through the build. So your own home is really a test bed of ideas and who you are. And my premise was very simple. I didn't have much money, but I wanted to create a home that did not require air conditioning. It was a very simple premise. And two, that could use local materials. Well, as you all know, we don't have a commercial local materials industry on this continent, at least in West Africa. You can't go anywhere and buy compressed air blocks. You can't. You have to make these things. You can't go anywhere and buy processed timber, processed bamboo. When I moved to Ghana, when I was building my home, there were very few places where you could buy processed timber, kiln-dried timber. So my fantasy of using compressed earth blocks, bamboo, and timber as the main ingredients for a certain vocabulary, which, of course, is informed by the way we built in Ghana, our traditional building vernacular. But how do I create an architecture that was contemporary and fit the aspirations of a contemporary family like mine? So to cut a long story short, each of these ingredients I had to custom make. Could you imagine? For example, the compressed adobe. This was before the hydrofoil machines, which are very popular now. So I had to come up with the right mix of laterite and a small percentage of cement, OPC, and buy and fashion a mold myself and get this block to sit up straight. No, it was hell. After days of trying and the blocks would just collapse like that, I had two options. I thought, I'm just going to use sandpeat blocks, it's okay, and I'll plaster it with the mud. Or I should spend another week traveling through the eastern part of the eastern region of Ghana and go and see how people are doing it in the everyday, which I did. And I took a camera and I went to a place in the area called Koforidua, near where I'm from. I just saw these mud blocks on the roadside, just making them. So wow. I think I was overthinking it. Classic architect, I'm overthinking it. So I was trying to document the whole process. I asked them, and they showed me the amount of smooth mixed with the amount of rough, laterite, and they didn't even use cement. So I had the advantage of having a binder, which is OPC. So I went back to Accra, and I remember the first time the block stood up straight. Nirvana, I mean, it was fantastic. So thus began this very simple process of building my home and my family's home using materials that I found around Ghana. You know, it looks very simple. It sounds like a task. So at least I accomplished that. And in doing so, it made me realize the role of heritage vis-a-vis contemporary culture, and how these two are what must drive a certain way attitude towards being an African and being an architect. So fast forward, now I practice in the oldest part of Accra, an area called Asha Town, which was Dutch Accra. Just like Lagos, you had a series of colonial rulers, starting from the Portuguese and the Swedes and the Danes and the Dutch in our case, and also the English. Our shores for trading, one, and of course for slavery. So I practice in the part of Accra called Asha Town, which is Dutch Accra. This area has fallen on hard times since the British moved the administrative capital post-Second World War to other parts of Accra. So it's your classic urban village. It's in Accra, but you could imagine it could be thousands of miles away from it, but there doesn't seem to be the infrastructure support that the rest of Accra has. Housing hasn't changed. There's no new housing for 80 years maybe. People live in their family homes still. Grown-ups, people sleep on the sidewalks. I have 2 buildings in this neighborhood, and every night you have families sleeping in my covered arcade. So the thing becomes, do you drive them away in the name of modernity, or do you tap into that natural resource of security? Because if they sleep in front of your house, nobody's going to come and break it, right? So I happily welcome them every night. I don't have to pay for security guards and so forth. So now I look at architecture through the lens of old. How do you integrate into the old and not erase the old? So integration over erasure. And I also decided to look beyond edifice making. But how does one engage with space, the public realm, the historic realm, heritage realm, by engaging with activities that bring people together? So the first thing I did in this old city 4 or 5 years ago was to rent a space in a historic building, which is circa 1915. And I had a gallery, an architecture and design gallery, the only one in Accra, maybe in Ghana. Because I thought we need to bring young creatives, not only about painting, but product design, photography, architecture, into a very unusual space. And this idea was born out of a recent collaboration I did. I organized between your own Kunle Adeyemi. Do you know the architect Kunle Adeyemi? You guys don't know who Kunle Adeyemi is? Yes, Kunle is a young Lagosian architect who was working with Rem Koolhaas out of Rotterdam. There's a book that Rem did on Lagos many years ago. I think it was called Lagos. It's a yellow big book. And Kunle was one of the young, he was a young student from Unilag, who worked with Rem and then moved on to work with Rem Koolhaas in Rotterdam. And he is a designer of the Makoko school, the controversial Makoko school. So I invited Kunle to an architecture conference in Accra. And I paired him up with one of Ghana's great hip-hop artists called Edem. And they I use the word, performed in this historic building next to where I am now, which is the old Kingsway building, which is the first departmental store in Ghana, which is in ruins, basically. And what struck me was to see an architect and a hip-hop artist discourse. And because of the hip-hop artists, the children of the neighborhood all came to listen. children who may not have come to see Kunle listen to Kunle because he was collaborating with a famous hip-hop artist. Therein lies, I think, the future for you young students of architecture. Architecture must occur with the other creative fields. You can't have architecture in isolation. You should collaborate with the musicians, with the artists, the painters, song and filmmaking. This is the space in which we belong. And the fodder for all these ideas that should drive the new African architecture is heritage. Heritage doesn't mean that you are stuck in the old way and you transpose it into culture, because culture is ever evolving, it's ever changing, right? And I always say, I think I said this morning a little bit, we need to learn as architects from the musicians of Africa who have been extremely successful at telling the African story better than any African architect has so far. This is an indictment in a way, but it's also a celebration that we can. We have to look beyond bricks and mortar and look at the soul of place and by extension ourselves. And so this is all to say thanks for inviting me. I'm sure we're going to have a discussion, but my focus is about placemaking, of which edifice is only a very small part of. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much for that opening speech. I'm not really too sure what I'm supposed to be doing as the chairman, but let's continue somehow. I'll comment on what he said because just recently, last week, Friday and Saturday, I don't know whether you've heard of Legacy. They were having a workshop and I actually went to the Friday session. Legacy is an organization that is set up to protect and uplift our heritage. So they've done some renovations in a very old building at the railway compound. I don't know whether anybody has been to the railway compound. I mean, in Ebutemeta, it's like going into the 1940s or something. You know, you just see all these old buildings and big compounds, you know, just as it was many years ago. So it's a very old area, and they've renovated one or two buildings there. Well, one building at least, the Jackal House, and it's a very old building, ground and first floor building, kept in its own style, very small. And they had a workshop there, and the main discussion they were having there was, well, I wouldn't call it the main discussion, but they did a presentation, Pedro Olatiche or something, an architect, did a presentation on the demolition of Ilojoba. Ilojoba Olaya House was an old Brazilian building in Tinubu Square. And if anybody knows Lagos, Tinubu Square was like the center of Lagos. And it was an old square in those days. I've seen a 1950s photograph where, you know, somebody just walked across the road and there was one or two cars at Tinubu. But to cut a long story short, Tinubu now is the center of Lagos. Central Bank is beside it, all sorts of edifices are beside it. And further down from Tinubu Square, so there's one side of Tinubu Square that's more like offices, and further down from Tinubu Square, going towards Idumota, is markets, serious markets. So Ilojoba was opposite Tinubu Square, and because of development, even though Ilojoba was a protected building, because the families were fighting over it, somehow they've gotten one side of the family gotten a demolition notice, demolition permit, and they demolished it. And this is a building that is of the Brazilian style, was in very bad shape, still had some people living in it, but it was demolished because, I presume, or that's what we were told as well, that it was a prime area for development. So it's very interesting that you are also saying things about heritage and whatnot. And how do you change old buildings and somehow keep that character or that niceness that they had and still become a new use? I actually went to the workshop because I'm doing a design now for an old family that has a small bungalow in an area called, in a road called Bangoshe Joseph Street, which I'm sure people know Bangoshe Street. Bangoshe Street and Iboshere Road in Lagos were the old, we used to be called the old Brazilian quarters. When a lot of slaves came back from Brazil, that's where they settled. And okay, so you can imagine the kind of houses they are, very tiny houses. This plot that we're working on is about, I think it's 7 or 8 meters by about 7 or 8 meters by about 20 meters. So it's very tiny. And it will take me 5 minutes to just demolish the building and start again. But, you know, I'm also an old Lagos person. I was born in Lagos, so I think, and the older you get, the more you realize that if you just continue demolishing buildings and starting afresh, what stories can you tell people of buildings that were there? I mean, my father was also born around Broad Street, and he remembers Broad Street when it was a two-way street and trees were on it, and there was an old building there and an outside yard. Of course, that's where a multi-story building is now, and so on and so forth. So it's very important to try and keep our heritage. And as you said, it's very important to find a use for the building. So it might not be a family house again. It might have to be some sort of museum. It might have to be a bar. It might have to be a restaurant. You know, it's like a lot of the pubs in England. I'm sure they were old buildings. They were probably family houses before, but somehow they've kept them. They're now a pub. So you've got to rejig the inside, give it a new life, give it a new soul, and you know, then it might live for another 50 years and be useful. So it's the soul of the building. How the building is being used is all part of architecture. We designed the airline services building at Ikeja, and it's a great catering unit for in-flight catering. And when we designed it about 10 years ago now, the client said he wanted to do 2,000 meals a day, and we designed it for a capacity of 5,000 meals a day. And later on, the business improved. He was almost doing about 12,000 meals a day. And somebody went there and said, you know, that building is just what a catering facility would look like. You know, it's had different flows, because in catering, the flow is very important. How do you move from clean to dirty and make sure that the clean and dirty do not mix? But I haven't been there since we designed it almost 10 years ago. But for somebody to come back and say it looked like that, that means that you've got it right. Your building the use of the building must be as you wanted it. You don't want to design a space and then they use it for something else or whatnot. So it's very important to get the soul and what the building wants to be, and then the space can now work around it. So let me not talk too much. I think there's other people to speak.
History of architecture. You know, if you have gone through architecture, right? History of architecture is one of the most interesting courses you will take at school. And it doesn't just tell you past history, right? It tells you preservation of history. If you go to Europe, for example, right? Or where you have a cradle of civilization, there are still buildings that are standing. And those buildings are not just buildings to house people. They tell a story, right? And that's why when architect Femi Williams was talking about the building they demolished, you know, it just saddens me because that building down Tinubu Square, right? Just like he said, that was the first settlement of the freed slaves, right? And such buildings are supposed to tell the stories of how the freed slaves got to Nigeria, their first point of call, where they settled, right? And the interesting thing is this, that the part we do not look at. In 2010 or 2009, I was in New York and I went through one of the carriers, you know, the aircraft carrier, right? It's battered there in, I think in Manhattan. But they turned that carrier into a museum. And you go in there, the carrier is telling a story. And I was opportune to meet a man now in his 80s or so. And he was just 17 years old when that carrier was at sea during World War II. So he was the one telling the story. Well, you see, that carrier, right, when they built it in 1945, when they built it in 1942 or 43 for World War II, they said only cost about 45 million then to build, right? Carriers cost billions today. But the interesting thing is that how much that carrier, right, has generated being a museum in New York. So if you look at that house they demolished, right, those are iconic buildings that we could turn into what? Museum for tourists, right, to generate income for the state. Well, I guess we do not look beyond our personal gains as a race. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. So nice to be back in Lagos. Thank you very much for having me here. Wow, the subject matter. Health and safety, we seem to have gone into many other issues. I'd like to say something about it though. Because ultimately, as beautiful and interesting as architecture is, it has to be healthy, it has to be safe. I was preoccupied by this, and I actually went and did a postgraduate, and I was very, very fortunate to study under somebody I really admired and respected. And her name is Anita Olds, and she sadly passed away from cancer, but I was lucky enough to be her student. And she specialized in healing environments. The course is actually called Healing Environments for Long-Term Healthcare. And I was interested because I wanted to go back to Uganda, where I'm from, and we have a lot of health issues. I'd like to fast forward. I think health and safety is really critical. I'm not so familiar with the health issues in Nigeria, but I'll give you an example since we're on the same continent. Right now we have a cholera outbreak in Kampala. We have a lot of toxic materials that are being brought into the country under the radar. So health and safety, buildings have stories, they have a narrative, but ultimately it's a place where we raise our families, work with our colleagues. And if we're surrounded by toxicity, we are going to definitely not live to our full life. So I think health and safety is very, very critical. And I would encourage us all to stay learners, because there's a gap in the knowledge industry, and other people are taking the opportunities and teaching us. And we probably have a lot of our own indigenous knowledge, but we should also have that concern to really be rigorous. I'm really angry with the amount of toxic materials that we have in Uganda. It's completely unacceptable. The wonderful thing is that we have a group of lawyers, and they've set up something called ACN. And last year I invited one of the, I call him the bulldog. He's not afraid of anything. He's really a bit crazy. But I invited him to Nigeria last year, and he came and he set up the ACN, which is the Anti-Counterfeit Network, to support our industry. Because I was just saying, we've got to do something about this. If we don't do it, it's just going to overtake us. I'm sure you've heard about the toxic tiles, toxic paint, children who have allergies, you know, all sorts of things. We don't even realize that we're breathing in all of these things that really make us sick. So our house, our home, our hospital, an office must be something that adds value. So I love what Joe was saying about not having air conditioning. I'm so anti-air conditioning because if you see what's inside the air conditioning machine, if it's not maintained, you will run. And I'm sure you've all heard about the Legionnaires' disease where people died in a hospital because they didn't clean the ACs. So we have to have both the foresight to question, to look back, to monitor, to evaluate. I know this sounds probably very boring compared to these wonderful conversations, I'm sorry, but I want to really stress how important it is. I'm a mother, I have 3 children, my son has allergies. Okay, now he's a man, I'm sorry, he's 22, but he's still my baby. But I could never live in a house that had anything toxic in it, so I had to do a thorough research. It's like, what paint did you use? And people would get very frustrated with me. But to the point that when I have a client, I interview my client. Do you have allergies? Do you suffer from headaches? And I ask them, are your kids okay? Do you have anything that we need to know about? Then I explain the importance of toxicity.
Can I ask a question? And I think people should ask questions as we go along, so it's interactive. You mean you can have a problem with a painted building, a tiled building?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
Please tell us more.
For instance, I'm not sure if you've heard about I won't mention the country, but they're using their waste material to make tiles, and then they put the ceramic finish and send it out to Africa. So it's toxic. It's their toxic waste, which they then produce materials. Paint is very dangerous because it's everywhere. But the good news is there's also a lot of business. There's a business side to this that we can actually add value as professionals, as people who are concerned about the environment. There's a equipment that you go around and you know, that kind of thing. So I mean, as an architect or as a designer, as a design consultant, you can add value to the conversation to say, you know what, we're only going to use mineral paint. And then you encourage people to own the experience, they own the brief about their project. Of course, hospitals are very critical. There's a certain material that bacteria die on impact. Now, do we know about that? So I find it very interesting. I'm excited about it. But I'll tell you a story which is good and bad. We had a company that was very courageous. They bought paint that was only mineral-based, natural minerals. And they would mix any color. It was beautiful. And you don't need tiles, actually. You would finish your bathroom with this particular kind of finish. But people were so skeptical that they made sure that this company failed and support it. And also, you know, make your own business out of it. I mean, I keep saying, buy that little machine. Any one of you in this room, it's not a secret. And have it as part of your investigation when you go onto site and say, no, we can't build here because I found there's something here. We can't build here. Let's build here, or let's finish it like this. So I want to just address that very specifically. It's not only our responsibility, it is also imperative that we take care of ourselves and the people who we serve. And it's also a tremendous value addition to the conversation. It's a fantastic learning curve. It requires us to also have the opportunity to think about developing a business side of it, if people have that sort of inclination. And like when people want to remodel houses, the first thing I do is I inspect it to see, is there asbestos? What kind of paint? What was used? And then I also now found out in Uganda that certain buildings that were built at certain times in history were built much better because we had a lot of war. You know, we had Idi Amin, okay, and everybody knows Idi Amin, but it was a long time ago. But we had very well constructed buildings at a certain time in our history excellent cement. I mean, he was really a disciplinarian amongst other things, but that thing he was very strict about. So if you're buying a property that you want to remodel, or your client wants to do that, find out the history of the building. When was it built? What kind of materials did they use? Get rid of the bad stuff and keep the good stuff. I think enough said because I don't bore you. Secondly, about contextual, cultural, I mean, I'm a fan of Joe's. I haven't been to Ghana yet. But he sends out these messages every weekend. I think Joe's life is just a party. It's like, but what I love is Joe loves people. And if you think architecture is about buildings, then you really are not understanding architecture, in my opinion, my humble opinion. Because we're built for people, we're not building sculptures. So if it doesn't make sense, then we become, it's dangerous as architects, ego. So big. I remember one architect screaming at everybody and saying, "Don't you know who I am? Don't you know who I am?" And we were all looking and thinking, okay. I think it's difficult because we have such a privileged position to create something. I mean, I don't know what faiths you are, but we have a privilege to create something that has not existed, or to transform. As our chairman is saying of the session, that you can see something, investigate it, and transform it into a different function, but maintain its beauty. We have an incredible privilege, so we need to handle that well. But to go back to culture, my grandmother's house is made out of volcanic rock. I'm from the hills. I'm a hillbilly, black hillbilly. I'm from the mountains. If anybody knows the mountains of the moon, you don't know, maybe East Africa. Okay. So we live I come from a volcanic area. We have mountains and lakes. And my grandmother's home is stronger than my late father's home. They're both late. I mean, sorry, in Uganda, that's what we say. I don't know. Do you say that here? Yeah. Okay. So they're all on time, but they're not with us anymore. But this house breathes. It's incredible. I mean, I know. I was here 2 years ago, and I really wanted to take some of the wonderful people I met, especially the amazing students, and I've actually spent time writing an internship and mentoring policy, because I got so many phone calls, and I'm getting my visa, do you have room in your house? I was overwhelmed. But I would love to take any one of you, and we need to exchange. We need to cross the border. So going back to cultural heritage and its relevance, volcanic rock is very, very healthy. It's mineral, and you don't have to paint it. So low maintenance, it looks beautiful, it has its own color. Right now I have the privilege of designing someone's home, and we're going to use volcanic rock. Even the kitchen counter is going to be slim. And I'm taking them back. So this resort is supposed to be a spa, and I've kind of said, if it's a spa, why would anybody come all this way to small Uganda to spend all this money on what? What are we doing differently from Paris, Dubai, I don't know, New York, whatever? So our spa is using our local rocks, our local mud, face masks and all of that. And then I found out that if you cook in clay, the pH balance is perfect to fight cancer, which is pH balance 7. So I don't know how it is, but for us, we cook with clay pots. And there's now a big movement. So even as you're building and designing these homes, these spaces, it's completely connected. Because you have beautiful buildings and sick people. So what's the point for me? This is my submission. I think people are wonderful. What would we be doing? If there were no people, there'd be no architecture, right? We'd all be sculptors. So I think we really need to embrace what does it mean to have a healthy, somewhere that people really find themselves also. Color therapy is really important. It's healing, actually. And we need to engage with minute detail as well as have a vision. So I really appreciate what you're saying about the renovation of all buildings. We had a big discussion about our national theatre in Uganda. And Joe had not televised, but a radio show about it. And Joe asked me for my opinion, and it was rough, because at the end, when I did enough digging, I kind of thought, wow, this National Theatre, it was based on the design of a grand piano. I mean, how many Ugandans know what a grand piano is? So I had mixed feelings about it. I thought it shouldn't be destroyed. It could be maintained and turned into a museum. But could we wrap it with a new language of another building? I mean, ideally leave that museum and then, like the Guggenheim Museum, put something else around it that talks about us and who we are now. It was built there because the colonial powers wanted some entertainment after making their laws to keep black people away from other spaces. So the history is, you know, it's not so great, but it's our story. But how can we find balance? How can we engage with it? How can we protect the narrative, because we need to know where we came from, but also understand it for what it is? I mean, the guy in the bus park doesn't know what a grand piano is, so why are we fighting to keep this building that represented a very oppressive time in our life? However, I think as scientists, because as architects, we're both scientists and artists, we have an opportunity to bring that conversation to say, no, we want to protect it because technically we achieved this and this, and because some of those buildings are amazing. They have no air conditioning.
And you and I,
beautiful.
We also talked about the people, the great musicians and
Great
theatre
musicians,
people who
yeah.
lived and, you know, worked in this building, inspired by it, to create knowledge that today we all benefit from.
So you need to come and make a museum.
But I'd like to kind of, Jennifer, thank you very much. Thank you. But I want to just touch on this volcanic material. And also the buzzword that we all use these is sustainability. For most people, sustainability is a technical thing where, you know, we are talking about the kind of materials we should be using with solar power, blah, blah, recycling and all that. But I have another catchphrase below that, which is in our own words. Sustainability in our own words. So that we have to begin telling stories, like she's just told us, that our forebears understood sustainability. It's not a Western concept. We lived it. So as we transpose or translate it into architecture, so I'm going to tell you my story about volcanic material. When I moved back to Ghana 14 years ago, and after I built my house, I told you about this house. What came out of it was that the Building Research Institute, I'm sure there's one, there are many in Nigeria also, which is a 60s idea by our then President Kwame Nkrumah. They developed a whole range of local materials that sat on which are still sitting on the shelves in these institutes, never being commercialized, never. And we keep importing these same products. So in 2004, when I built this mud house, I was approached by the institute. The banks, the MPs, I spoke to everybody. Then I had to go back to where I had just come from, Los Angeles, and I found an American. So that's a good business plan, right? I mean, the government got. Guess what? They never bought it. The company went under. But to me, failures on the continent should be our inspiration. I'm hoping that somebody will build a better mousetrap next time. We can't focus on failure. And I'll bring it back home to Lagos for a moment. I was telling Theo Lawson, who's in the front row, about a picture I saw, a picture of Makoko School. They rebuilt Makoko School in Brussels, in Europe. The same Makoko School that collapsed in Lagos and people vilified the architect. The Europeans have taken Makoko School, built a better Makoko School on a beautiful river across from this is in the town of Bruges, I believe, across from a cathedral. The moral of the story is, let's celebrate our own. That's what people, materials, and culture. Because somebody will take it away from us one day to be regretted forever. So that's my continuation of it.
Any questions?
I don't know if you saw the news in Hawaii. There's people are dying as you speak because of the eruption. But by the time it's cooled down, several years later, it's no longer toxic. So they are, like I said, architecture is science and it is art. So you do have to be technical about what you do. You need to take it for testing, just like you would take a brick or a block, cement block for testing. You similarly take that for testing. But people have understood their culture. I mean, when you come to my village, everybody's house, it's not just my grandmother, it's everybody. Our walls between, we have short walls about this big, but everything is volcanic rock. There's an Israeli company that was building a road. They had a field day. They couldn't believe how lucky they were because of the quality of our soil and the volcanic rock. They used it to build the roads, and it replaced other materials. So it's a very, very important material that has a lot of research behind it. My granny lived until she was about 110, so clearly she's okay. Yeah, she was fine. So I think that's okay. I need to find out some more technical information for you, but I think if we have an approach to rationalize it, then we can always find out what is good and what is not good. Is that okay?
I found out that we're kind of different in West Africa. I've had opportunities of practicing in different places, and people kind of embrace new things. Even in South Africa, all over that region, they seem to be more attracted to new ways of doing things. So we have cultural problem. I remember doing a building in Kenya, Shelter Africa headquarters. So when I went there, because I designed the building when I was in the Republic of Botswana, so I didn't know much about the building materials in Kenya. So when I went there, and I realized that there's something I could have done that I didn't do. In Nairobi, they have companies that would cut rocks square. You know the rocks that you see in Abeokuta, but they have been able to cut those rocks. And, they would cut the rocks square, not very big. But when you lay those rocks, they are stronger than reinforced concrete because the rocks are very strong. They're coming from nature. But what the companies have done is simply to cut them. And I saw a whole estate of kilometers by kilometers built out of this rock. So, and I was telling myself, if I knew about this rock in Nairobi, I should have done my building using that same rock. But I designed the building using blocks. But by the time I got it, it was roofing, so they were using, I missed that opportunity. And I was thinking, we have rocks all over Nigeria. It's a question of bringing the company here to cut those rocks and so that we can use them. There's nothing I didn't do. Nobody's interested. So we have serious problem in this part of the world. Professor Olusoya did a building for a tiny fraction of what it would cost inside University of Lagos. He lived in the building for years. He probably still living in the building since 1990, around 1991, 1992. And he made demonstrations to Lagos State. Lagos State took the design and still built these things with the way we've been building all along, like 10 times the price. And so we have an issue. So I don't know a better example like what Professor Olusoya did. Everything we've been discussing here is theory. He actually built the buildings and moved his family inside there, and he's been staying there for about 30 years. And that building was built for less than 10% of what it would have cost. And it's a beautiful design. So I don't know who to talk to. So all I can say is that if there's something you know how to do, do it. And do it doggedly. It's like you do it and repeat doing it. Hopefully somebody would catch you. In South Africa, the whole of Southern Africa, I worked a little bit all over South Africa, Botswana, Mozambique, Zimbabwe. None of those places do they do form work for lintel. You know, like we do window lintel. No. I was doing something in Abuja. You know what we do, you know, normal angle iron, back to back. You know, an angle iron packed back to back, and you place at window level, and then you will use 4-inch block to fill the two sides of the angle. That's what they do in all of the countries in Southern Africa. I had to do a building, only one building in an estate in Abuja. Everybody was building the same thing. And I did this angle iron thing. And it was done in a day. The whole lintel was done in a single day. And we didn't have to wait. There was no need for shuttering. There was no need for warm work. There was no need for reinforcement except this thing and then. And you won't even see the lintel. You see the blocks and then it continue like that. The way you would do brick, remember the way we do brick abroad. But nobody, even in that estate, copied it. So, I'm tired. I do things the way I know how to do it, knowing that my people will never change the way they think. So, I'm not even frustrated. No, I'm not frustrated. I do things to satisfy my particular client or myself. And whether or not they pick it up, now, we can speak as much English as we want, but Professor Olusanya has done it way and for so many years. He designed the roof tiles. He made the roof tiles himself. He designed the pulley. He designed the floor slab. He designed the blocks. The blocks had no mortar in it. There's no reinforcement in it, and it's a 3-story building. It's still there in Unilag, and it's at least 30 years old, but nobody is copying it. Do you have a better example? Bring it on. Thank you.
Dimas Nwoko. Do you know who Dimas Nwoko is? I invited Dimas to come to Accra. And his book had just come out, which was written by Godwin. And nobody in Ghana knows who Dimas Nwoko is. Nobody. So, this, I think it's an African disease. But I think we should not despair, because it's not about the physicality of what nobody's looking at now, but I think you're going to do something else that was underpinned by that initial drive, and that may be the one that people will look at. I called myself a failed entrepreneur because I had this business just collapse under me. But it never stopped me from driving forward with this aspiration of local drivers. And so it should never slow us down.
I'm glad to be here today for the vanguard of trying to encourage architects and developers to find a way to start integrating these things from the scratch, since it makes for sustainability and in terms of health and safety and environment as well that we are discussing here. The practice has always been developers putting up houses and then creating a powerhouse where the generators will be kept. That's the standard practice here. Unfortunately too, that's also toxic because the emission from these generators emits carcinogenous materials that poison the people that live in the neighborhood. Last night I couldn't sleep because a neighbor was firing generator from 7 p.m. till 7 a.m. this morning. It was terrible. Apart from the pollution, the noise was also terrible. So we're also trying to encourage developers and architects to see how they can begin to think along those lines of integrating some of this renewable energy stuff in the buildings that they do. We also mentioned about solar tiles, roof tiles. I mean, you mentioned about roof tiles. There's also solar roof tiles. Some companies have started making solar roof tiles, so which you achieve two things in one, whereby it generates power for you as well as acts as your roofing material. So I think we should start promoting and encouraging this. We we are available to work with you, collaborate with you, and then see how far we can go. Thank you.
Thank you. Just real quickly, I want to say that I fully support you. I'm excited because I always make sure I have solar and educate my clients on every project. We also have the solar tiles. We're already using them in Uganda. We are. And the other thing is all of these problems we hear about charging our phones on our bedside, that's terrible. But I had a meeting with my client and I told her I'm not putting any sockets near your headboard. Charge your phone in the living room. And when I explained it to her, she really appreciated it. So I think we need, sometimes it takes a bit more patience, but we're going to get there. But thank you very much.
Hello everybody. I just wanted to say something about Emerson Woko. It's surprising that he is not known about in Ghana. And I think a lot of us in Nigeria know about him. But a lot of people don't know he's an architect. They think he's an artist. However, the famous Burkina Faso architect, Francis Kerry, if you look at his detailing, it's straight from Emerson Woko's book, detailed book. So I think it goes back to what you said earlier about us not appreciating what we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I would like to touch a little bit on Engineer Michael's, Dave. So, good design is, I tell people, and I've learned this late in life, it's common sense. If you really think through all the things that your home needs to make your life better, you need air, you need light, and you need protection from the sun, or controllable. You know, devices are just one aspect of it, but what about nature? What keeps my house cool is not the louvers which I use alone. It's not the mud, the adobe block alone, but my incredible forest that covers my house. The day I laid the first foundations, the day I planted my trees, 14 years ago. So in a year when the house was almost completed, already the trees were, and I didn't buy seedlings. I went to the forest and dug out mature trees. Because I come from California where that's the expertise. They have huge nurseries of mature trees. So I learned very quickly you can go to the forest and dig, not a big tree of course, but I'm saying, you know, a mature tree, take out all the roots and bring it to Accra. And I planted it. So today, if you come to my house, from the road and you drive through my gate, it's like, I don't know what the drop is in temperature. It's immediate. Before you even enter the house. So the house, if I did the same house, exposed, like with you know the concrete paper blocks that we all do, and some nice grass. Why do we like grass so much in Africa? Too much water, grass. The house couldn't perform. So this is a common sense thing. We need umbrellas to protect ourselves. So we need to translate or transpose the philosophy into the built environment. The roof of the building, one should be protected as much as possible. And the slab should be raised off the ground because most heat comes from conduction straight from the earth into your building. If you think about it. So you can air condition your house all you want, the heat on the floor is purring.
I'll just add to that. I also lived in a non-air conditioned house from 1960 to 1977. However, it was on an acre of land and beside the water. So I don't know whether I'm copying out as an architect, but it might be difficult to get that kind of no air conditioning in a tighter environment. But it's probably still possible, but
ceiling fans.
Yeah, ceiling fans is a must, you know, and big high spaces is also a must. And exactly what he said about the house is actually on the first floor. You know, I remember our house was on stilts, you know, and we never had air conditioning. We never had it. So, but it might be an old past that you can't imagine in a terraced set of houses, 15 houses, 20, blah, 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 blah. We might have lost that age, but we can still try.
To what he has said, I was opportuned to, when I was in school and when I just left university in the 90s, right? I was opportune to visit Demas Nwoko's house in Eziopoluko, Eseluko, and the one in Ibadan. Yeah, he was, or he is, uncle to my former boss's wife. So I was kind of very close to that family. And there were peculiar things in his designs, right? He likes to use mud, right? And you know, mud is a very bad conductor of heat. Even if you look at, I think in architecture where we did materials, right? The mud, when you build with mud, right? The houses in the village that are built with mud, right? During the day, the inside is cool, right? Because it doesn't transmit heat easily, right? But by evening, while it is cooled outside, it's actually warm inside. It retains the heat. That's when the heat is just getting in, right? Yeah. And to buttress what he said about trees, I'm a lover of nature. If you want a cool environment, both houses that belong to Demas Nwoko are all surrounded by trees. I love trees. It will interest you to know, right? Now, what are the strategic importance of trees? Trees are like the nostrils of the earth, right? Trees are what help the earth to breathe. Now, trees are conduits between groundwater and atmospheric water. A full-grown tree can transport 10,000 gallons of water. That's approximately 37,800 and something liters of water from ground and release it into the atmosphere in a growing season. And it will only use less than 5% of it for its nutrient and biomass. So, right? It doesn't understand it. So if you want a house that is cold and you don't want to use AC, build with mud. This is our block, right? It's a very, it retains heat easily. You understand? Build with mud, plant a lot of trees, and you will enjoy that nature. It's very simple.
I want to add about this cutting of trees. I find many stories of cutting of trees. But the funniest one is there's a little clinic opposite my house. And my trees have grown so tall, so sometimes in the rainy season, the branches will hit the electrical lines and then there'll be a power outage in the area or something like that. And one day the doctor living across the street came to say, "Joe, you have to cut these trees down." And I said, "Doctor, every day, do you know how many of your patients come and sit underneath my trees?" His place is so hot, they can't sit in the yard. And then they come to me and they say, "The cars park underneath my trees." I said, "So if the price for your patient's comfort is a once every 5 years the power goes off, so be it."
Okay, I think on that note, there are other speakers that have to come up. So if there are any other last questions, otherwise we will round up. And give a big thank you to Jennifer, Joe, and Osegali. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John. We are very grateful. Architect Femi Williams, fellow Nigerian Institute of Architects. Thank you very much, sir. I think we did justice to that topic, and we even overdid justice, right?
Yes, I think we had a very good day. The session was great as well. Thank you for everybody that came out. Apologies that we started a bit late.
Yes, tomorrow we're going to start early because there's no paparazzi of the opening ceremony that has been put behind us. So tomorrow is going to be a full business day. We are here and we're going to have a lovely session. I can assure. If anybody forgets anything here again, it now belongs to us. I can assure you that tomorrow is going to be fantastic. Let's endeavor to come on time. We'll try to close on time so we can get enough rest for our delegates, our attendees, our special guests, and everybody involved.
So we are available on social media. Please do follow us at www.nia-lagos.org. We're on Instagram. Are we on Twitter?
Yes.
Yes, we're on Twitter at nia.lagos.
And LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn.
And Facebook. Sir, you have to look away. And pick one. Okay. The person, thank you very much, sir. Adekoya Ademuyiwa. Is that person here? Adekoya Ademuyiwa. Let's give a round of applause. This is the winner of the 15,000 naira. You are welcome. Are you an architect? You are aluminium, an artisan.
Yeah, I'm artisan.
Please give him a round of applause. Give him a round of applause. These are the kind of things we want. No, sir. It's still a better news. We've converted that money because we know we don't want you to use the money to enter taxi or to eat or to give to your friends and have a good time in the evening. So we converted it to a book that is written by an association called the Association of Consulting Architects Nigeria, ACAN. This is a book called The Architecture of Nigeria. Architecture of Nigeria. We want you to see what our architects have been doing and all the main buildings in Nigeria. On behalf of the Nigerians of Architects Lagos State Chapter, Tosin, you want to present it to you? We do present this to you as the lucky raffle draw winner of the day. Thank you very much, sir.
I'm very grateful to all the people and my people because
just before he speaks, the man didn't send you. I will give him the 15,000 naira.
Mr. Adekoya, I think you are indeed very lucky. Out of only 2, you are now going with 30,000 naira. But I can still convert it to a book. I will convert it to a book. No? Wow.
It's part of me. I love it.
No, you must love education to be here as an aluminium fabricator. Please, what I want you to do now is give them your phone number and introduce yourself.
You must gain.
You must gain.
My name is Adekoya Tomiwa. I have my own business, my aluminium company, which is One Aluminium. I fabricate aluminium products for partitioning, cashier cubicle, like windows and doors. And
what profile do you use?
I use Negalens, I use Toa and other materials made from Ghana because we are very wide, which is very good. To my point. And I'm very rich to meet people. And again, I'm very grateful. I thank God for giving me this opportunity to come here. Because on my way, I came last year. Today is what Nigeria test me. I saw the test yesterday. I must be here again. I must be here again. And I'm very privileged that I will continue to come to your.
Thank you.
My phone number is 082.
We would love to affect lives. We would love to impact in people's lives. We love to impact education. And that's why we've opened our floodgates and said, look, you guys come in for free. Don't pay any money. Come in for free. Come and learn. Come and improve your firms. Come and improve how you practice architecture. So please tell others that missed out today what they are missing. It is free. And we feel this is a way that architects can actually give back to the society, because a lot of us actually contribute money to make this happen. Money, time, effort, hard work, dedicate. We leave our offices and chase this goal, and it's happening. So please help us drive traffic here. If he can live chasing aluminium, I don't know what people are sitting down, and he knows the effect of what he will get here. He will get exposed to more products, probably more contacts, cheaper ways of building aluminium work. I saw wrought iron there. Did you visit that stand?
Every stand here.
I can see. There is an evidence.
I get a lot. I get a lot at your
do
this very cheaper
way. Thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause today. I'm inspired. I am inspired. So I look forward to a wonderful time.